Welcome everyone. This is Emmanuel Joseph Akile, the host of the Dawn program, a flagship program here on iRadio, a live broadcast from the capital, Juba. Today we're going to talk about education and the relations between the two countries, South Sudan and the United Kingdom. Joining me in our mini studio right now is the UK Prime Minister's Special Envoy for Girls' Education, Member of Parliament also, Helen Grant. And with me in the studio as well, Alicia Herbert. She's the Director of Education, Gender and Equality and Special Envoy for Gender Equality. It's good to have both of you with us here today. It's our pleasure.
Thank you very
much.
Good,
great to be with you, Emmanuel.
All right, let me begin with you, Helen. Can you say a bit about what your roles as Prime Minister's the question goes to you, Herbert, as Prime Minister's Special Envoy for Girls' Education and Special Envoy for Gender. What is it all about? Both of you, actually, you can start.
Yeah, well, I'm the Prime Minister's Special Envoy for Girls' Education. I've been in the role for around a year now, and it is an amazing job. It's an amazing opportunity, and effectively it is to globally champion our UK Prime Minister's message that providing 12 years of quality education for every single girl on the planet, including girls in South Sudan, is one of the best ways of tackling many of the major issues facing the world today, such as poverty, climate change and inequality. And Alicia and I are here in South Sudan because the UK values its relationship with this country enormously. South Sudan's success is important to the UK and to the whole continent of Africa, and we believe girls' education is a critical part of that success.
All right, thanks for that. Alicia, you can add something.
Oh yes, and absolutely. So for the UK government, for the British government, putting women and girls at the heart of our development and diplomatic efforts is exceptionally important to us. I work alongside Helen. She focuses very much on, of course, on girls' education. I focus in very much on issues around the empowerment of women, the economic, social and political empowerment of women, and indeed ending violence. But of course it all comes together because in order to advance the rights of women, you need them to be educated, you need them to be empowered, and you need to end the violence against them.
All right, thanks for that. And Helen, let me come to you. Tell us, why does the UK government really cares about girls' education around the world, but particularly here in South Sudan?
Well, it's as I said earlier, it's something that's extremely close to our Prime Minister's heart. He gets it. He calls it the Swiss Army knife approach to development, and really he's talking about the transformational impact that educating girls can have. If you want to change the world for the better, girls' education is a great place to start. That the child of a mother who can read is 50% more likely to live beyond the age of 5, twice as likely to go to school themselves, 50% more likely to be immunised. Girls who are educated are more able to choose if, when and how many children they have. So therefore educating girls is not just good for women and girls who make up 51% of the population, but it is also extremely important in terms of levelling up society, boosting incomes and developing economies and nations.
Right, and Alicia, you've been into some parts of the country since you came here to South Sudan, and an example of Yei and Juba here. How would you assess the level of education in this country when you see women and children?
Yes, so absolutely. We've been very fortunate. We visited a school here in Juba, and yesterday we were in Yei and we visited both schools and health facilities in Yei. And what I saw, a combination of things there. The incredible dedication of teachers and head teachers, young professionals, young health professionals, as well as BOMA, health workers, delivering services to women and girls, delivering services, on the front line. The way in which they've responded to the pandemic, very, very inspiring indeed. One of our programs is around giving small amounts of money to girls, particularly to help them to continue in education. It's called the guest money. And girls spoke very, very eloquently about the difference that makes in their lives for them to go to school and for them to continue in their education. But what it also pointed out to me as well, the visits here in Juba as well as in Ye, is that we still have the scale of the challenge ahead of us is still quite enormous. And indeed, it will involve, for example, the continued commitment to pay salaries, for example, of teachers and health workers at the front line so that those services can continue to be delivered. So lots of progress, inspiring examples of what's going on, but an enormous challenge out there. And, we have to step up to that.
Right. In addition on the issue of guests, and I understand many girls are benefiting from this project supported by UK government. Does it in one way or another encourages the UK government to continue supporting education in South Sudan, especially girls' education?
So yes, as Helen said, the UK government has got a commitment to supporting education and supporting girls in particular because of the very particular barriers that they may face. So yes, it's quite inspiring to see what happens here in Sudan, and indeed it gives us hope, gives them hope, of course, and to continue on that journey with them.
Right. And Helen, does the UK government has any role in terms of supporting education around the world?
Yes, I mean, we have been able to help many millions of children around the world, including thousands and thousands of girls in South Sudan through the Girls Education South Sudan programme, through the Education Cannot Wait initiatives and the Global Partnership for Education. So, the UK are definitely leaders in terms of global education policy and the financing of it. And by way of example, I would point to the fact that our Prime Minister Boris Johnson put girls' education at the very heart of the G7 summit to make sure that girls' education got the financial and political commitments that it needed and deserved. We also agreed 2 new very ambitious global targets of getting 40 million more girls into primary and secondary school and 20 million more girls reading by 2026 in low to middle income countries. And with our international partners, we co-hosted the Global Education Summit in London last summer, whereby we managed to raise a huge $4 billion for children's education. So a lot is happening, but we need to keep the pressure going.
Right, and let me pick from her the issue of G7 summit. Is South Sudan one of the countries considered in this, especially for the UK government in terms of education?
Yes, so at the G7, as Helen mentioned, we had a commitment amongst, and we led, we were in the presidency last year, and we led big initiatives across the G7 on education, and particularly girls' education. And South Sudan certainly benefits from UK investment in girls' education. Yes.
And Helen, you tell us more about UK support the UK support you're giving to girls' education in South Sudan. I mean, Alicia mentioned yes, but what else is the UK government involved in?
Well, the UK government is the principal, the main donor of Education Cannot Wait. Education Cannot Wait focus on keeping children learning during conflict and crisis, and we know that they have been able to build some 113 new learning spaces in South Sudan and have distributed over 1 million textbooks. We are also a principal donor to the Global Partnership for Education, and they have worked very closely with the government of South Sudan and other partners to help to strengthen South Sudan's education. And the focus of the help that we provide is very much about improving learning, improving the quality of the learning, in addition to special measures to help address the barriers that girls face in getting to school, staying in school and reaching their full potential. And that might include dealing with issues such as violence in the home, pregnancy, period poverty, disability, as well as safeguarding issues.
Right. And Alicia, you visited schools here in the capital. You saw some pictures on social media and a health facility in Ye. So can you tell us more? What were your takeaways?
Yeah, so my takeaways from that, absolutely, fantastic to go to a school here in Juba, and indeed, as you said, to health facility as well as schools in Ye yesterday. My takeaways: one, inspirational, the work that's been done, at the front line, in terms of the teachers, the head teachers, the young professionals who are delivering services, be it maternity services, dealing with women who've been violated, women who've been sexually abused, the Bulma health workers reaching out into communities, encouraging people to come forward for vaccines, treating illnesses, at the Burma level, and indeed saving lives by doing that. So absolutely inspirational, delivering a whole range of services, on the front line. But at the same time as well, also kind of getting a sense of the scale of the challenge that we still have out there, and the key issues that we need to work on in order to tackle that. And amongst those key issues is this business of payment of salaries of those on the front line for them to continue to deliver those services.
Right. You're still watching the pre-recorded interview of the Dawn program live from the capital, Juba. Helen, let me come to you. You can also add something on what she mentioned, especially the challenges. I understand coronavirus has affected so many countries around the world, and South Sudan is not an exception. But then those challenges you're facing, does that mean you're going to share them with your government?
I mean, the pandemic has had a devastating impact all around the world. In South Sudan, yes, it's affected many people, but in other countries too. It's been one of the biggest educational disruptors ever, affecting 1.6 billion children, and many of these children are girls. Many of them will never return to school. Many of them will never start school, and we also know that out-of-school girls are certainly more at risk of violence, sexual violence, forced marriage, early marriage. I was pleased to hear, however, that many of the schools during the pandemic in South Sudan have been kept open. Learning has continued, but there have still been learning losses, and these learning losses need to be urgently recovered, and in order to do that there needs to be, going forward, continued focus on quality, because again, a lot of children are going to school, more girls are going to school, but many children are sitting in classes and not learning enough. So if we're talking about quality, then we're going to come right back to teachers. And in my opinion, there certainly needs to be focus on making sure teachers are trained, making sure they're motivated, paid adequate salaries on time, and this is something that we very much hope that the government of South Sudan will prioritise. Right.
And Alicia, is this your first time here in South Sudan?
No, in fact, it's not. Actually, I lived in Khartoum between 2006 and 2009. I was working at the British Embassy in Khartoum and came very regularly to Juba, so no, it's not my first time.
So, since it's not your first time, but here in South Sudan, I think a lot has changed. And tell us, as you leave, what will be your takeaway with you as you go back to UK?
Yeah, no, absolutely, a lot has changed. And I think, I remember my first visit to South Sudan in 2006 and flying into Juba, which was a very different experience when I came in just a few days ago, flying into Juba, and just the physical, you can see what has happened and what has changed, and what has changed what has changed here just in Juba. We know that Juba is not South Sudan, and that's why it was so important to get out yesterday, to go to Ye and to get a real sense of what's happening there. So I think enormous progress has actually been made over the course of the last few years, and when I was last here. Some of that we've outlined today, response to the pandemic, health workers at the front line. But as Helen said, we don't have the numbers just yet for South Sudan, but we know that in countries like South Sudan, that a vast number of children still can't read, as much as 90%. They are in school, but by the age of 10, they can't read a simple text. So that's the sort of challenge that we still had ahead of us. And as well, I think the importance of government sort of stepping up, paying those salaries on time, paying adequate salaries on time, and indeed leading the funding of quality, sustainable services, so that everyone can access that in South Sudan.
Right. Helen, questions goes to you?
Yeah, well, it's also not my first visit to South Sudan. I was here in 2012, so it's good to be back 10 years later, and I feel I have an even deeper understanding of the nation now. I think it's a country with great potential, but clearly there are many social, political, economic and environmental challenges to be addressed. And as Alicia, my colleague, has said, I also think it's crucial that the government is able to lead and fund quality, sustainable services that are accessible to all. And, this is really important for South Sudan's long-term success going forward. And, of course, an accelerated peace process so that South Sudan can have a stable, peaceful democracy where the rule of law and human rights are respected for all.
Right, and before you wind up, maybe to both of you, Alicia, let me start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about UK's future priorities on education?
So yes, as we pointed out throughout the course of the interview, education is very much central to our policy moving forward. We made big commitments as a leader on the G7 last year to get 40 million more girls into school by 2026 and 20 million more reading by the age of 10 by 2026. We're very focused on those targets, not only what we will do, but indeed how we kind of catalyse and work with the international community in order to achieve those targets. Because, as Helen has pointed out, when you educate a girl, it's not just an investment for now, but indeed an investment for the future, an investment in her children and in her household, in her community, and indeed in the broader society.
Right, Helen?
To continue to champion the transformational power of girls' education, to make sure it gets the priority and profile it needs and deserves, and those continuing financial commitments, to hit those big global targets of 40 million and 20 million by 2026 in low to middle income countries, and to actually get build back better from COVID-19 and to get global education back on track, prioritising keeping schools open and urgently recovering those learning losses that sadly have been endured during the pandemic. So there's a lot to do.
Right. Thank you both. Helen Grant, MP, Boris Johnson's Special Envoy for Girls' Education, and Alicia Herbert, Director of Education, Gender and Equality and Special Envoy for Gender Equality. Thank you both for joining us on The Dawn today.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel.
Bye for now. My name is Emmanuel Joseph Akila.